First order of business is salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is a public hearing. As noticed, pursuant to RSA 41:14-A, the Board of Selectmen will hold its first public hearing to grant property easements to Lakes Region Conservation Trust for property located in the Great Meadow, tax map lots 31-1-1, 31-1-2, 31-1-5, and 17-1-2. The public hearing will take place on Monday, May 20th, 9 a.m. or 9:05. 240 Middle Road. We changed the address a bit, but the public hearing is now open. Any public comment? Steve, would you like to give the crowd an assessment or a description of the easement?
Okay. I think this idea probably goes back to 3 generations of conservation commissions. I first came on board in, I think it was 2009, and it wasn't even mentioned at that time. And then a couple of years later, it came up that there was an effort that was started back in the late 90s out at the Great Meadow. It was considered to be a special place, both historically, environmentally, a great opportunity to do something for wildlife and water quality along the river. So we got back into it probably about 2010. The first thing we did was work with Lakes Region Conservation Trust to put an easement on the town ownership at that time, which was kind of the southern end of the meadow. And since then, we've worked with other property owners and picked up some other properties, and now we're trying to catch up and put conservation easements on the other properties. Most recently, we received a grant, $149,000 to acquire 2 parcels, one just below the transfer station and the other adjacent to that property, which is almost the heart of the Great Meadow area, so it's really important. And it kind of falls into that category of some of those places. There are a few places out there that are worth saving for future generations, for the public, for water quality. There is a great aquifer underneath the Great Meadow wetlands. It's, I forget how many millions of gallons it has of water that comes off of the Ospey mountain range, which is mostly conserved at this time. And that water is incredibly pure, and it's unusual in that it's almost a pure balanced pH 7, which is unusual in New England. New England, most of our water starts out kind of acidic. So, all in all, it's a great place, and we think it should be conserved into the future, and that's what an easement does. It's an agreement between the town and Lakes Region Conservation Trust, where they actually own the easement, and that is actually what you would call development rights. So the easement prevents future development, like a housing development or a commercial development, transfer station, almost anything like that. It can be managed for forest products. It can be managed for wildlife. It can be managed to eliminate invasive weeds, things like that. It's just the core of the easement is no development. Any questions?
This is planned on, which I think it has been in the past, is There's no restrictions on any of these things, hunting, fishing, trapping, whatever.
That's correct. Actually, it's a place where, you know, if everybody, or all the other private landowners in town put no trespassing signs up, it would be a place where people could go for a variety of reasons, including hunting and fishing. Thanks.
Joe has a question?
I just turned on the camera, that's all. I want to make sure I get everybody in there.
Okay. Well, according to RSA 41:14-A, we're having our first public hearing. They shall hold 2 public hearings at least 10 days, but not more than 14 days apart on the proposed acquisition. Provided, however, according to provisions of RSA 39:3, the proposed acquisition or sale, 2 public hearings upon the written, they shall hold 2 public hearings at least 10 to 14 days apart on a proposed acquisition sale, provided, however, upon a written petition of 50 registered voters presented to the selectmen prior to the selectmen's vote, according to the provisions of RSA 39:3, the proposed acquisition or sale shall be inserted as an article in the warrant, which we don't need to do because this Conservation Commission has the money for the acquisition. The selectmen's vote shall take place no sooner than 7 days nor later than 14 days after the second public hearing, which is held. So that's the sequence of events that will come to pass. Our second item for business is the review and approval of minutes. First set of minutes is from May 6th. May 6th, public minutes.
I have no changes.
I move approval as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The non-public minutes from May 6th.
Yep.
I have no changes.
I move approval as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those minutes are currently sealed. Do we want to keep them sealed?
Yes.
Yes.
The second set of minutes is from May 10th. Okay. Public minutes from May 10th.
I have a change or an addition.
Okay.
Go to page 1.
I'm on page 1.
Go to third paragraph up, says new construction at each.
Mhm.
The end of the paragraph has a bullet point that says site work is estimated at $116,063.
I'm showing 126,063.
Talking down here.
Oh, the last paragraph. I got it.
No, that's the last word in that paragraph.
Yep.
I move that we add the following statement, quote, "It does not include demolition of the Gould House, filling in existing wells, and there are problems with driveway visibility." Other than that, I'm all set.
Yeah, just a little, the last bit, problems with driveway visibility. Is there a cleaner way to word that?
However is appropriate. If you want, make 2 sentences out of
Yeah, I think we will.
Okay. I'm flexible.
So possible driveway slash entrance.
Yep.
Design issues.
Can you repeat that, not under that, please?
I'm sorry, possible driveway slash entrance design issues. Is there a verb in there? I don't think there
Karen can find one.
is. All right,
There are possible driveways.
sure.
Yeah.
You'll find a verb, right? Any other changes?
I move they be accepted with the modifications.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. For the non-public for the same date.
I have no chance.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval is submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm gonna move that the minutes are unsealed.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Cool. What's that?
You're flying through this agenda.
Well, that's because I want to go home. Okay, our next appointment is 5 minutes late, but we're 5 minutes late. Swap shop with Bonnie Pennell. And I'm just gonna preface this whole thing by saying the selectmen met and voted in accordance with our authority to close the swap shop. There were a number of reasons why we did it, most of them economic. And I'm hoping, or I'm actually demanding that this meeting remain cordial and open and suggestive. We're interested in having suggestions if there needs to be a swap shop, or the town wants to have a swap shop. The problem that we faced was manpower, having to man the swap shop constantly. And lastly, I'd say that hopefully you've all gone to Moultonborough or Wolfboro or Ossipee or Effingham or Conway and taken a look at their transfer stations. We have the nicest transfer station in New Hampshire as far as I can see. So let's not make this a bitch fest about the transfer station. We've got a good product there. They're doing a good job. We're doing a lot of recycling without the swap shop. And so I think the public mandate to recycle is being worked as well as it can be worked. But this is panel.
Thank you. My name is Lauren Pennell, and a few weeks back, I went to drop a box of things off for the swap shop, and there was a spray painted across the thing that it was closed. I went and spoke with one of the gentlemen up there, and he told me that it would no longer be open, and that he would be going to the selectmen about this. I asked him the reasoning behind this, and he said people drop off a lot of electronics that shouldn't be, and that they are losing $20,000 to $30,000 because of this. I don't feel, I've seen one TV out there, I've seen other electronics anywhere there, and a lot of people use the swap shop. I have 160 signatures voting for the swap shop, and I think that this is something that's necessary, as do the voters here.
Okay.
Any questions?
Anybody else want to weigh in? You're all here.
How much money economically you said you were closing it? Explain to me what goodwill is money. Explain to me why, how much it would cost us.
Well, okay, from my look at it, and we certainly haven't exhausted our looking, is that a significant amount of material was going into the swap shop that ended up in the C&D. Construction waste debris. Clay gave, Clay's not here, I guess, so. Clay had given us a figure on that of, I'm gonna say $20,000 or $30,000 worth of tonnage that we were gonna have to pay for. What normally would have happened would be the people who brought the stuff in and put it in the C&D container would pay for that C&D waste disposal. We've all done that, taking lumber or shingles or whatever, mattresses. So there's that point. The second point is that in order to keep the town's liability and the general operation running, you need to have somebody in the swap shop all the time, so that they can say, no, you can't leave that, yes, you can leave it. That's an abuse that's going on. It's not only an abuse on the C&D end of things, but it's also a liability abuse. So somebody drops off a vacuum cleaner, you pick it up, you take it home, burns your house down. Where do you go? You don't know whose vacuum cleaner it was, you didn't buy it from a store, so the liability lands on the town. Whether you win or you lose, it's still there. So we can't swap out certain things. So in order to manage it properly, you need a person there. There's another $25,000 or $30,000 worth of expenses. So when we look at the budget as it's constructed last year for this year's operation, there is a room in there to do all of that. So our discussions have been, or part of our discussion has been, how do we affect a swap shop and man it? I mean, unless anybody here wants to volunteer to do that. We haven't had any luck at all with volunteers. You're gonna volunteer?
I could volunteer. Did you advertise that you were looking for volunteers other than the website?
I'd have to look at it.
Yes,
Was there posters? I didn't see.
not posters. I asked 12 people and I asked 4 civic organizations in the town, and these people have all given to the town in other areas. I had no luck locating a volunteer.
But it wasn't.
I did not put a sign up, no.
Wouldn't, Stan,
Yeah, just state your name. You don't have to say.
wouldn't just a simple sign having rules to begin with initially have eliminated a lot of that? All it said was a little piece of card with no electronics. If there was rules and the men saw something, then they would be able to just say, no, read that. But there was nothing, no indication of what could or could not be dropped off there at any given time. You know, you would make common sense not to put a big couch out there. Of course, it's gonna cost the town money to dispose of. But there was no indication of what, so if that's the problem, then that's a simple solution to that.
Well, that's one of the problems.
And the other problem being rudeness to the people. Well, I mean,
That was a pretty minor, I mean, I was in business a long time. People are rude, you just live with it.
they are everywhere. Go to 7-Eleven.
So that wasn't a major portion of our consideration. One thing that was a part of our consideration is it isn't just Tuftonboro residents that are going in there to grab stuff. It's junkies, I guess, who want to have yard sales. I mean, one of the rules that wasn't in place or wasn't being managed properly was identification that you're a resident of Tuftonboro. You know, if you're gonna go in the swap shop and take things and leave things, I don't want you from some other town, because we only have to manage what's here in Tuftonboro, not everywhere else in the world.
That's what the sticker's for, right?
Right, right.
I'd like to comment on this $25,000 to hire a person. First of all, you want some suggestions, here's one. Move the swap shop into the transfer station building. It's a huge building, it's underutilized, there's plenty of space there. It could be done if somebody wants to make it work. Secondly, there's always somebody in that building.
Right.
They can be responsible for kind of watching what comes in the door. As John said, if you put some signage up that says what you can or cannot bring, that should alleviate a lot of that problem. This is ridiculous to say, oh, we're not gonna have it because all these issues that kind of get accumulated. There's some nebulous numbers here that I think, if you took a hard look at it, I think it'd be hard to defend some of these numbers that get kicked around. Either if we want to do it, we need to do it. And, you know, I like Clay, but if you can't make it happen, you can hire somebody who can make it happen.
Okay.
Philip Hunter, I would echo what Steve said. These numbers that are thrown around, I'm having a hard time to believe that $20,000 to $30,000 worth of electronics are illegitimately dumped in the swap shop only to be hauled over there. I think that's a kind of a gross exaggeration. I know there are perfectly good things that need to get upcycled. It goes back to, as someone else said, signage. There's never been any adequate signage to say what is and what isn't allowed. I'm curious why a signage to the effect of liability, that there is no liability on the behalf from the town. If you take something from the swap shop, it's on your own doing. The town's not liable that your house burnt down because you took a toaster home and it caused a fire. I would think that could be a simple remedy. I'm curious the origin of the swap shop, how it came into being, and what the agreement was. There seems to be a misunderstanding or lack of understanding on how it came into being and whose responsibility it was. I hear different sides that, well, it's not the responsibility of the people that work there to even manage the darn thing. Why is it thrown on them? It's not in their job description. So I was just wondering if we can get enlightened on the origin, when it started and how it started and what the agreement was as to, was it part of the employee, the deal there. I do agree that a volunteer system of, if you don't have a volunteer manning it, then it's not open. That would be a simple solution. There's a volunteer sheet. Someone's volunteered to be here from 9 to 12 on Saturday, then it's open 9 to 12 on Saturday. And if nobody's signed up from 12 to 4, then it's not open. Going back to Lloyd's comment that, we asked a dozen people, and then Jackie pointed out, I never saw any public display that said, looking for volunteers to run this thing or it's going to shut down. We need help. Talked about signage on different levels. I'm curious, I know I've witnessed in the past people from outside of town there taking stuff for their yard sales or whatever, and I know that it really bothers people that are working at the dump, Clay in particular. To me, I could care less who takes my old whatever it is. If they're gonna upcycle it, if they're gonna yard sale it, if they're gonna put it on their bed, hang it on their wall, I don't care if it goes to Alton or if it goes to Tamworth. If someone's gonna upcycle it, why do they need to be a resident of the town to take things out of the swap shop? And I mentioned the job description. I'm not sure where it falls. I don't want to pin this on the people that work at the transfer station that are obligated to manage it, if indeed they're not. I don't know if it's in their job description or how this swap shop fits into the Tuftonboro transfer station umbrella. Goes a little further, and I've mentioned it a few times online, and apparently nobody checks online because, I get that. It seems to me there should be some sort of mission statement for the transfer station. What is the goal there? What is our goal? Is it to keep our town clean? Is it to keep TVs, decks, asphalt, tires off back roads? Or is it to make money? where, you know, this $86,000 that was collected last year, where does that go? Does that go back into the transfer station to pay for picking up debris around town? I don't think so. It goes in a slush fund to pay for who knows what. Seems to be an imbalance there. I think we need a mission statement of what we're trying to accomplish for the better of the town, not the manager or a few select people. Thank you.
Interesting, we're not taking any personal benefit out of this. First of all, we probably do need a mission statement. Secondly, it's not just electronics, so don't pin me down to just one thing that is the problem.
Okay, that was the only thing that was mentioned, was electronics.
I think as far as the volunteers are concerned, we're living under the problem, if you will, of trying to find volunteers for anything. Volunteers for Parks and Rec, volunteers for the Planning Board, volunteers for the Conservation Commission. It's a really big struggle to get people to actually put in the hours in for the town. So maybe we should post that. The idea of only being open when the volunteers have signed up is creating, it would need some management, and I'm not certain how that happens. Go ahead.
Dwight, Dr. Murakami.
Oh, one last thing, Dwight, just before. As far as the people from out of town, the issue isn't I don't want any of this stuff moving out of town. It's that those commercial operations were in conflict. We needed to eliminate the conflict. So one junkie comes in, he wants this, but another guy comes back and he said, I already put my dibs in for that, and then there's an argument. Now somebody we're paying needs to manage that conflict and not do his job. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I've seen recently, and we've gone from years ago when the dump opened up there as a landfill, from one man running the landfill dump. And now we've got several employees working up there, and I applaud the selectmen and Clay for trying to keep the costs down up there. But where did we ever, or the townspeople, want this to be a money-making operation, or even break an even deal? We want our town clean. I don't care if a few of my tax dollars has to pay from somebody that has to take their electronics because they really don't want to pay that $5 or $10 to it. Instead of taking it over on John Hersey's land over here, or Fran Lassie's land, or somebody else's land, and dumping it out in the woods. And it's happening. So, you know, if it goes to the dump, that's what we want. We want to encourage this stuff to go there. If people can take these things and go out. To get these signatures on this, it was so easy. I don't think the board is listening to the people of town. I think sometimes that you get a little bit separated from what the working people want, or not just working people in town, but what we want. Nobody's asking this to be a money-making operation. We don't ask the town road agent to make money on the roads. You know, we want our roads plowed, taken care of, and whatever we're willing to pay for it, okay? And I think that in the suggestions of people that were signing these petitions, everything came up to, hey, you can go and get a surveillance camera and put it on there. Good signage and surveillance camera for very little money. Different things like that. So, you know, if instead of just having one person's opinion that it's a pain to do it, if the employees up there took an hour at the end of the day and walked around up there and picked up the trash that's blown around that place up there, it would be much more attractive than waiting for the prisoners to come over from the jail to clean it up there. And I agree, we have a nice transfer station as far as insurance and everything else. But if the people are getting it, there's toys going up there, I know, that's a hot spring thing. But if there are people that take perfectly good toys up there, and people go up there, and there's people in this town, you know, they can use those toys for their kids and recycle them. They don't go in the trash. and it does somebody in town or out of town. I put a swing set out in front of my house and helped the people load it in, and they were tickled pink, okay? But it's the philosophy of the whole thing going back. It's the same with the dumpster, because everybody's gotta have one, because we can make the money not be identified. If we wanna be identified being in town, that's fine. But to make this a money-making thing, I think the whole philosophy of the transfer station has to be looked at. And maybe you should form a citizens committee on that, to look at these things and get them lined up and get good suggestions from around town and about some of these decisions, instead of just a couple fellows sitting around having coffee and making the decisions. Thank you, Jim.
Just a reminder to you, Dwight, that I remember giving you a sticker when I was in disagreement with having to buy stickers. And what we're confronted with here, this year and last year and a few years prior, is a business model that has been created wherein the $86,000 doesn't go into a slush fund. It actually goes to offset town expenses. So a business model's been created wherein there are fees and costs imposed, which is not unlike taxation, for disposal of certain items. I personally would be in favor of having no fees at all. And you pay your property taxes, you get a sticker, and separate our trash. That changes the business model beyond which we're budgeted for this year. Now, if we want to change the business model and add that $86,000 back in to the budget, which we have to do because we're not collecting it anymore, then let's have a citizens committee, let's get a recommendation to go forward with that. That can't happen in 2019 because our budget's all done, it's set. It can happen in 2020. But I'm in agreement that I'd rather have the trash at the transfer station than sitting on my property. So,
I see your logic, Chip, but this stopping of the swap shop is done mid-budget. It's not the end of the year budget, or, okay, as a town meeting, we made the decision that it's gonna happen. So it shouldn't take, this should have nothing to do with reopening the swap shop, which is, I guess, what we're supposed to be trying to
There are
stay
two
to.
different
Yes, and we
topics
should
that
be
we brought up
talking,
here.
because that's what's on the agenda, that we're talking about the swap shop. And I'm sorry, I got away from it a little bit. But I think it was a good time to start the thinking process on that part of it. But
and it goes to Mr. Hunter's statement that we need a mission statement.
Rich Piper, probably most of you know, I'm probably up there quite a bit more than most of everybody else, but just make a couple points back on the figures. I think they're counting that everything in the transfer in the swap shop went into the construction debris. And if that's the way they did it, that's fine, but a majority of the stuff that goes in there is small stuff like kids' toys, paintings, stuff like that. And I say that just because just in the past couple of weeks, as people are starting to come back to town, you know, they have stuff for me. I just cleaned out a garage, a nice painting, I almost kept it myself. You know, children's toys, there was a dry event still in a package. Into the hopper it went because there was no place for me to take it, and I donated it. So as far as the economic point, it wouldn't surprise me if you keep this shut that the municipal waste is gonna go way up. Because it's, you know, not every, you bring in a painting, you're not gonna be charged for it, or you know, kids' games or something like that. It's going in the hopper. So if you figured out the tonnage, because it was all going into construction debris, that's nowhere near an accurate figure. And just to bring back, you know, as far as the labor, you've just said it yourselves, for several years this has been open. We've got the cleanest station in town. They're actually doing less than they were a couple years ago. So as far as I know, there's no overtime. They're keeping it clean, they're keeping up with it. So it's kind of a hard argument to, you know, they're not falling behind. Hard argument labor-wise.
I don't think it was any of our understanding that everything that went in the swap shop was going into the
Well, as far as I know, I've seen him just throwing small stuff into a bucket and dumping it into the construction. As long as he's not, you know, saying, okay, that would have been $40, because it wouldn't have been. Normally, if people bring it in themselves, it's going in the hopper like I just did.
I will back that up, that I was told yesterday that it does all go into the construction.
And I realize it's
Only-
cheaper to go in there, and
only
that's
by
fine,
default,
but you can't look at it and
because
say,
they don't
boy,
take
there
the
was
time to
3
separate
times cheaper.
the street, what
One at a
should
time.
go.
Sorry, whoa, one at a time. All right.
I was saying, they did say that they do put it in construction debris only by default because it's easier than separating one for the other. And Rich's point is valid that a lot of it would end up in the hopper if you told them they couldn't go in the swap shop.
Which would actually cost the town more, because it's more to get rid of the hopper than the construction debris, as far as I know. So, you know,
Well, and just to their not being so busy, they're gonna be busy as soon as I tell them that there are only 3 inmates at the county jail currently that are available for work. We're not gonna get that.
I mean, I'm up there, I know,
Perimeter picked up without the
Why can't we just do it a regular basis?
paid help doing it. I'm sorry?
Sorry. The trash didn't just magically appear around the perimeter
No.
the last week, okay? So why don't we, let's be honest, there are times when you go there, the guys are not working to do much of anything. So they could have been out picking up that stuff. It didn't just all happen this week, and having 3 guys from the jail come over doesn't really put a whole lot of dent into it either. Or even, why should we wait for a crew of guys from the jail? I mean, it just seems like that should be part of the routine.
It can be, but I mean, there are a lot of elements to everything, every decision you make. I mean, there is a certain benefit to having inmates from the county jail doing community service. It's good for them, it's good for the county. So you have to add that element into it. If our helpers sitting around or leaning on their shovels, you're right, let's put them to work, clean it up. Most of the trash that's around the perimeter accumulated over the winter months when it's not as easy to pick up, but it needs to get picked up.
So can we have the guys at the county, so they feel good, can they come once a month?
I don't make that arrangement.
Okay, I'm just saying, if we're gonna have, if it's a social benefit to them, and it's a benefit to that town to have the trash picked up that blows around it, why not have them come regularly?
But our guys should do it in between, because it looks horrendous. It's absolutely unsightly.
I take my heat out there.
If I may offer a suggestion, or ask a question, all right. It was suggested that we put an ad hoc committee together to present a set of recommendations to make the swap shop work. Can I ask for a show of hands of people that are here today that would be willing to serve on such a committee?
So that's
Okay.
You taking names, Bill?
I'm not, but I would like to have names.
Put a sign up,
I'm sorry?
put a sign up sheet right there, so before you leave.
All right. There were issues with the swap shop, and there are two ways I think you can deal with it. You can stop it, or you can figure out how to deal with the issues. My view would be if we have a group of individuals that can present a set of recommendations to this board, that would be something for us to act on going forward. As with lots of activities, 90% of what people do works great. You get the bad apples or the bad actors that come in and muck it up for everybody else. And so how do we have an environment that minimizes the impact of the bad actors, gets them out of the mix, and allows everybody else to participate? In my view, that's where we need to go.
You done?
I'm, yes, well, not forever, but.
Okay, here's a question for you. When we're talking about bad actors, we have, Chip alluded earlier to this issue of the stickers. Okay, there are lots of times when I've seen cars there that do not have stickers on them, so we don't really have enforcement on that issue, and I'm not really sure how you want to deal with that. But those are bad actors, just like the things that we're talking about with respect to this swap shop. So how do we address that? I'm not saying that needs to be, it will be up to you guys to decide if you want that part of this group or not, but it seems to me this issue of the stickers, some people have said, well, why not just mail out a sticker with your property tax bill, and then all residents who are property owners get a sticker, and that's it, instead of what we're doing now. But we also have people that come to the dump that do not have a sticker. And there's really no mechanism I'm not aware of any mechanism for enforcement on that issue.
Yeah, there isn't, other than having an employee.
Ralph's been coming right out.
Yeah,
And
but now you're,
everybody, so.
Ralph's not a law enforcement person, he's just a worker at the transfer station.
Can we do a sign that says, current sticker for everybody comes to the dump, you should have this current sticker of whatever color it is for this year, to at least make people aware. I think some of these people come and they don't even know that they're supposed to have a sticker, or that they need to get one, so that would at least make them, you're gonna always get somebody who's not gonna do it, so that's a different issue.
I'll make the sign for nothing if you want to do that. I offered Clay in the beginning, when that swap shop was there, to make signs, and he said he'd look at Wolfboro and this and that. Asked him again, he never got back. I do it free, volunteer, my materials, my time, that's what I do, so.
And are you signing up for this committee?
Pardon me?
Are you signing up for the committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I was just kind of trying to codify or coalesce the meeting a bit. This committee needs to address a number of different issues for us, I guess. The volunteer list, time of operation, rules, which you're gonna have to get with Clay a little bit about that. It would be wonderful if you could come up with a mission statement. And then,
For the transfer station or for the swap shop?
I'd love it for the whole transfer station.
Well,
I think if the swap shop is all we get, that's fine, as long as we've got a reason. You're not everybody in town, you're just a group of citizens that are interested, so. And the other issue is signage, and I think that's been a real, sorry.
Mary Ann Stockman, Senator Borough. I don't know Lloyd, I don't know how you didn't get any volunteers. Probably half the population in this town is retired. I could call 8 people right now to fill every single volunteer shift, and I'll be glad to do it, but I mean, it's like, I've heard the commotion going on about everything, and, they don't have volunteers, and then $25,000 a year to pay for somebody to watch the transfer station. I heard Chip say that when I first walked in here. It's like, that doesn't make sense. The people that do work in town, a lot of them don't even make $25,000 to work 4 days. That's all I wanted to say, but I think we should have a list today too for volunteers. I'm sure there are some that will volunteer that are sitting right here.
Thank you.
Will the decision to reopen the swap shop happen quickly, or do you have to wait for, if you wanted to reopen it? You gotta wait until we have these committee meetings. I mean, we made the decision to close it just like that, so.
In a budget year.
Yeah.
Right.
So is this something that you're gonna wait for the volunteers and then maybe in October decide to open it, or would you reconsider it right off for the summer?
I don't know. I mean, this is the first discussion we've had with the public about it, other than our selectmen's meeting, which is generally not very well attended. So I can't answer that. I mean, it'd be great if we could get rules and signage and volunteers set up. That would make opening it a lot easier. I don't know how long that would take. So,
How about the 1st of July?
yeah, I mean, if you guys can get something together and help us out on this.
Well, I think that's what Jackie was asking, is if we could get
We're not,
together
okay, I'll make it
tomorrow.
really clear. We are not gonna open the swap shop where we can vote on it. But personally, my feeling is we shouldn't open it just to do exactly what we did before. That doesn't make any sense. It's not working. So if we wanna open a swap shop that works.
I think it's only not working for one or two people that are at the swap shop that just don't like dealing with the public.
Exactly.
Period.
It's your,
I would echo that.
Yes.
yeah.
160 people have signed that agree with that too.
I guess I would offer the opinion that if we can address some issues to make the operation, to address, come up with some ways to address some of these issues, that there's no reason that I see that we can't reopen the swap shop fairly quickly, certainly this season. Again, that's my opinion. That would be on revote of the board. But I do share Chip's feeling that at this point, without putting some of these other things, like John has mentioned, in place to help people use it better, that it's not going to deal with any of those existing issues. So we have a number of volunteers for a committee. We get a committee to put forth some recommendations, and it seems reasonable to me that we could deal with it in short order and return to an operating swap shop.
Michael Phelps. I originally was on the committee that started the transfer station, and the idea was to recycle. You said there's a lot of issues. Can you give the ad hoc committee a list of those issues instead of just saying there's issues? That we need a concrete number and list of the issues, and then we can address them.
So I think what we need to do is have you guys schedule a meeting. We'll make sure Clay's there, probably one of us, and list out the problems as they see, or as Clay sees it. I mean, he's gotta be part of this program.
And one of the selectmen needs to be part of the program too. And that was gonna be my follow-up, for us to sit down and meet and just a bunch of lip service that's gonna go nowhere, to echo Jackie's comment. If we don't have some sort of, a deadline on us as well to put together something, and where is it gonna go and what does it need to do? If it's just lip service, then it's a waste of my time and everybody's time. There's a lot of value to the transfers, to the swap shop. Rich made a good point, a brand new dryer vent in a box. I've put a brand new dryer vent in a box in the swap shop. I assume someone takes it. I've also been there at closing time where truckloads or bucket loads of perfectly good stuff are headed to the dumpster because we're a little egregious about cleaning out the swap shop. We're not, we have this thing where we don't want stuff to sit, and if you go beginning of the week, it's all cleaned out. No one took it all, it went in the dumpster. So if you go to the Wolfboro swap shop, there's stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff, and there's volunteers that work the facility, and there's signage. It does work. These other towns that you mentioned, they're not shutting down their swap shops. They're just figuring out how to make it work.
Well, there have been times, Conway shut theirs down, for instance, but you have a limited amount of space. Here's another issue you have to deal with. You have a limited amount of space. Who's going to age the inventory? Who's going to say, this has been here too long, it's not going anywhere, let's get rid of it? You don't have unlimited space. So to Mary Ann's point, it does cost money to manage something. So you're going to have somebody who's managing that inventory in order to make the space utilization work. So there's a number of elements to this that are going to come into play. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I usually go in on Monday morning on my way to work. I work in Malmberg. And I usually stop. And Monday morning is right after the yard sales have all been brought in on Sunday night. And at 8 o'clock Monday morning, they're down there with the bucket loader. Now, come on, really? That just, it's like, I don't care. I mean,
No,
it's.
I'm not saying that they were currently managing the space efficiently. I'm not saying that. Maybe they were, probably according to what you're telling me, they were overreaching a little bit on their disposal. But somebody has to decide. They're obviously in the business of keeping the place clean and getting the trash taken away. Your committee and your volunteers are gonna have to take charge of what stays, what goes, and how that operation works. So it's gonna take a little organization.
Common sense.
Go ahead.
Chip, since we've had a reduction in the kinds of things that we're recycling, we don't do paper anymore, glass is self-service, we have other things going on. How much extra time has been freed up by our recycling specialists that we might look at as now could be directed toward the swap shop activities?
I'm not
I
sure.
mean, we're not working as much as we used to be, so there's got to be extra time
That would be
available.
I haven't looked at that issue in the last 24 hours or in the last
Okay.
24 months. So I'll look at that issue. Bill can look at it. But I can't give you an answer if I haven't seen what's actually happening.
So it seems like that should have been a consideration. You mentioned earlier, this is the first public discussion we've had of this. If I could offer a suggestion, would you guys please think about doing the public part before you shut something down that may have some interest to the public?
I think we did actually notify a lot of, or the paper, if not our posting, that we were going to be discussing it on a couple of occasions during the course of the winter. Now, maybe it's not published enough, so.
Or maybe more definitive that we're looking at shutting it down. We want public input before we make that final decision. That's what you have today.
Right. I don't know that we
After
asked
the
for,
fact.
I don't know that we asked for public input. I could review the minutes. But I know that we went through 3 or 4 different meetings over the course of the winter where we discussed it. And didn't make a decision. I mean, it wasn't like we met once and decided, okay, that's enough of that. We had a number of different meetings over time. The public's welcome to any of them. We didn't publish them enough, obviously. We wouldn't be here today.
I think it's quite obvious that the workers up there don't have as much to do now that we've no paper or whatever, because they certainly enjoyed watching the big screen TV.
All right, I told you, I said in the beginning, I'm not gonna allow a bitch fest.
I'm
Okay,
just saying,
if we wanna review the management, we can do that. Clay's not here. So we delegate to our managers what they need to get done. The road agent's here, we don't go out there and ride around in his dump truck with him. His job is to manage our roads. Clay's job is to manage our transfer station. This is an issue, the swap shop is an issue that we're bringing up today. But I'm not gonna let this meeting devolve into some kind of employee bitch session. That's not gonna happen.
Point of order,
Just
Mr.
commenting
Chairman.
on time.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
I want to be courteous to everybody. Thank you for the public coming out. But I don't want to be discourteous to the other 2 people that have come in to make presentations to the selectmen. So could I suggest that anyone that hasn't spoken speak, and then I certainly have a clear understanding of what the public wants. Thank you.
Mrs. Pennell?
Clay knew that this meeting was happening today. Why isn't he here?
I can't answer that.
Can I say something? I mean, just to what you're saying, I think it's pretty evident that there are enough people here interested in making it work, and they seem to be willing to hear what we have to say. So those interested in the swap shop, let's just meet in the parking lot, figure our first meeting and get on with it, you know?
Yeah, just notice us. I mean, let us know when you're meeting or when you need us, so we can participate if you need us. If you don't want us to participate, then we're gonna have a meeting at the end where we have to discuss everything. So it'd be easier to do the process.
Would one of you be the liaison that the committee spoke with, just like the guy who didn't vote to close it?
I'll be happy to be president.
And if we, we need to move on, but to Dwight's point, if we could get this whole thing done by July 1st, it'd make me happy.
Do you want the petitions?
Sure.
For public
Sure,
record?
yeah.
And did we get our list? Bonnie, did we get our meeting list?
Thank you, folks.
Thanks for having me.
Nice job.
Thanks, Bob. We have to stay grumpy for yourself.
I should have said cyanobacteria and further thoughts on the swap shop.
Yeah.
Title is the bacteria thing. I want to be part of that.
Hey, don't delete anything.
Right now, we're hoping for volunteers.
You're gonna have board down, so to speak, about what it's outlined there.
I'm gonna run a tour, if you wanna go.
No, I'm saying, I've got a lot of lumber, you keep lumber. I don't, the project,
Okay,
you know, contract.
I'm gonna continue the meeting.
Okay.
Our next order of business is the cyanobacteria detection and reporting by Steve Wingate. No wonder the crowd. It's a little dry, isn't
Where's
it?
your group?
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, I'll listen to him.
So is this in conjunction with what's going on in Wolfboro?
Yeah.
Okay.
They formed a cyanobacteria committee, action committee, and I volunteered to be part of it because I live on Winter Harbor and I saw it happen. So last September, around Labor Day weekend, it lasted a few days. There was these little spots in the water column and things floating to the surface that I'd never seen before. I collected a sample. I talked to Warren Muir, who has a scientific background in this area and is very interested. He was down near Cherry Beach, and he had a much bigger balloon down there. And he had already contacted GPS. He had a way of magnifying these little green dots and sent it out to a website where there's a bunch of scientists that can identify different kinds of bacteria, and it was identified as cyanobacteria. Little background, cyanobacteria is natural. It's actually one of the oldest living elements on the planet. One of the first life forms to actually generate on this planet. Nowadays, it tends to grow in places that are difficult for other things to live. And in our case, it's down on the lake bottom most of the time. In fairly low concentrations, although because of our inputs of phosphorus, which is like, there's been a lot of algae growth, and the algae cycles constantly, dies, drops to the bottom of the lake. There's this little sludge layer down there now, and then that's broken down by bacteria. That's a whole other subject, but that's a bad thing have too much of that going on because it takes the oxygen out of the water. But the cyanobacteria part is, cyanobacteria are unusual in that they can conduct photosynthesis. Most of them do this from the lake bottom, so they don't need a lot of light. The kind we had in September, actually, it absorbs light and phosphorus, and then it starts to grow, and it floats up to get more light. And then eventually, it'll make a scum, a green scum, which people used to call it blue-green algae, but it's really bacteria. And some, a lot of cyanobacteria are toxic after they die, not when they're alive. So if it goes into your digestive system, your digestive juices will kill it, and then it becomes toxic. And it can affect neuro activities, give you symptoms like MLS, nerve disorders, Jake, loss of control, and also it's pretty prevalent in loss of liver function. These are liver function particularly people who are already vulnerable, older people like us. So it's significant to humans, and it actually kills a lot of pets because they don't know the difference between cyanobacteria and water and what. They're thirsty, they drink a lot, and it's enough to put them over in some cases. Cyanobacteria has shut down whole water systems like in Lake Erie 2 summers ago for almost a full month. You can't purify the water once it's in there. You chlorinate it, you kill the bacteria, and then it becomes toxic. If you boil the water, you kill the bacteria, it becomes toxic. The significant thing for us doesn't happen very often. Your lake had it back, I think it was 2007. But it does happen. It's happening around Winnipesaukee, probably in 2 or 3 locations every summer now. Generally towards the end of the summer after the water warms up. Scientists aren't real sure why it happens, know that phosphorus levels are an issue, and they know that warmer water is an issue. And otherwise, there's some missing ingredient we don't know about that makes it actually go nuts and become a bloom. Because at public beaches, it's an issue. That's why Wolfboro has decided to go all out and train all its employees to identify it. And there's going to be a session on June 26th, 9:30 to 11, that we're all invited to. It's run by the state. These are the people who do this all the time. They want to limit it to 50 people, but they'll put on as many sessions as necessary. So it's important for us to sign up if we want to go, if we want to send our lifeguards.
We need to let the Parks and Rec director know.
Yeah, I've already done that. And I told them I'd be talking to you guys. I think it's worthwhile to send some first responders to kind of people too. They're the ones that are going to get the call if some citizens see something.
And how do you deal with it once it's affected the person? Once a person's affected by it, how do you respond medically?
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to need to know that kind of information as well.
Yep.
So we let Adam know.
The Wolfboro is in the process of setting up a system, some kind of system of identification, getting the word out if a bloom is spotted, and medical advice if necessary. I've been sitting in on that, and they ask me what I think. I say, I'm suffering from all this. You know, we have to talk about this. So, I think Wolfboro will be out pretty soon. They're having a meeting tomorrow where they're going to talk about how they respond to it. So I think we'll have information on what their plan is.
So you'll let the fire chief know, so his first responders know what they need to do, if they need to deal with it.
I haven't done any more than, I think I sent Bill an email earlier when I first found out about the date and talked to there.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll give the fire chief.
maybe Karen, you can pass that email along to
Yeah, I don't know if I have it, but you can forward it to me.
The one issue about the training is that they learn as early as possible how many people you want to send,
Right.
and then they'll know how many sessions to set up. Right now, they only have the one session plan. And I've signed up, but I don't think anybody else would come for that. Brianna, how do you go?
Yeah, you'd be a witness to it.
Yeah.
I was at the Water Summit too, which was a 3-hour presentation. And I have an article coming out this week that talks about some of the things you have. Dr. Haney, who I think has been here before, in conjunction with Mirror Lake and cyanobacteria. He's a limnologist, right? Anyway, he came from UNH and he did a very more in-depth look at the biology of the cyanobacteria, which is too much for a newspaper article, but it is. If you go to the town website, wolfboronh.us, you can see that. And I think that session is June 26th. What do you have?
Did I say June 26th?
You did.
Did you? Okay. Is that a Saturday?
We actually went down and visited with him, I think 3 weeks ago, to try to get ideas about how to get started. One of the issues is, you train people, and some of them are going to be oversensitized, and some of them are going to be maybe undersensitized, and you see a strange thing floating on the water, and the next thing you know, they're getting alert. So you don't want too much wolf crying out there. One of the things Wolfboro is talking about right now is they have a resident, Dr. John Techmar, who is good at identifying this. They're going to work out some kind of a contract with him so that if they get a call, they'll call him and try to get a confirmation that way quickly before they start the gears turning. So that would be a possibility for us too. He's right there in Wolfboro. He's an independent contractor, so he's around a lot. And a limnologist, that's somebody who studies wastewater.
Yeah, the lake's different all the way around. I mean, you look at 19 Mile Bay is different from Melvin Bay.
I was going to mention, he probably had had blooms before he didn't know it. And the other thing about the one in Winter Harbor, it turned out to be a toxin, or a cyanobacteria called Gliotrichia, which is actually kind of unusual when it comes to blooms. And it responds a little differently than other cyanobacteria, and it generally, just in high concentrations, is not toxic. And a sample was taken and it was processed in the state lab about a month and a half later, saying that that particular bloom wasn't toxic. There's so many blooms that occur throughout the state in the summer, their funding is exhausted about halfway through the summer, so they just have to archive the samples and then catch up on them when they can't. It's another issue we could talk to our representative about. We didn't know about it as much in the past, and it's occurring more. So it's a upcoming issue, it's public health.
Okay, anything else on the conservation front?
No, I wanted to make a point on the transfer station. Conservation, and that includes recycling, it doesn't have to be a dollars and cents issue.
Right.
It's worth something. We clean up our houses, we clean up our lawns. Why wouldn't we clean up the bigger town that we live in and use good recycling techniques?
Right. It's just the anarchy of the system wasn't working.
Yeah,
It needs organization.
I
I mean, we're in the mid-20s, low 20s percentage-wise on our recycling. A lot of that's market-driven, but I think the swap shop probably could add maybe 5 points to that if you really worked it right. But it's gonna take work. I mean, the idea that you just put stuff in a box and not manage it.
I get. I think it's good we have some energy on it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. All right. Thank you, Steve.
I wanted to ask Jim, you offered to push that berm over out.
Yep, we can do that.
Did you do that sometime? I don't know when the contractor's gonna come and build it.
Have a
We're
good
gonna
day.
start working on the trail probably in late June.
Yep, I'll probably do that myself tomorrow morning.
Great. Thanks.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm way behind.
We'll see you later.
Quarter past 10. And we're going out to 9:35.
Yeah.
All right, our next appointment. I need a cap. Shoot. Our next appointment is Jim Bean. Oh, look at that.
My grandmother's.
Road agent, come on down.
Come on over.
Slide on over.
Come by boat?
It's been wet enough. Okay, so we actually got the line striping done already, so that's
Yeah,
good.
I like this.
Good play plans we can all enjoy for the whole summer.
I've heard a lot of positive comments and it came in under budget. That's a pat on the back.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the thing to do in the future is to not worry about paving, because in the past, we've had a delay till after the paving was done. I think we just get it done in the beginning of the year, because it was like very easy this year to get it done early. If I came to them and said in July or August, I don't think it would have been.
That's what
And there was no coordination with Ossipee? Or did they not want to do this? I just noticed when you get down Durgan Hill.
Yeah, correct. They normally would, but I think he said, hey, we're gonna try to get there today because we're gonna be in Sanbornville, I think he said, so we're just gonna shoot over and get it done this afternoon. I'm like, Robert, let's just get it done.
Have you used this company before?
It's the same company we've been using. Just timing
Just
is
the
much
timing.
easier at this time of year than it is.
Again,
So,
attaboy.
Keep them. If you want to know, if you get a chance, over 153 in Freedom, just take a look at the fog line. I mean, I don't know, that guy must have been drunk.
no,
I've never seen a fog line to these things.
So that's a state.
Yeah, that's a statement.
Yeah, a couple years ago, his GPS was off and you got wavy lines and you refused to pay. So you corrected
I
that.
don't have that. Okay, do we have we had an email or a note on paving. Have we settled on what we're paving?
so last time we were here, we did. I'm pretty sure I have the minutes with me. And we agreed that we were gonna go with 3,600 feet on Dame Road. We were gonna pave a top coat on Brown Road, and we were gonna do bottom and top coat on Sawyer Road.
Can I mention something about Sawyer Road? When I was over, because I take it all the way to not go through Tuftonboro Corner. Just a few feet from where the town line is by Neil Hill Road, that culvert is given up.
So we're there today. We're looking at the culverts.
And this is my thought. Ossipee spent a lot of money grading our roads before they knew it was our road. If they fix the culvert, I'm only speaking as one selectman, I have no problem with some of our tires going over 2 feet or 3 feet. No, there's just a thought, so.
Well, we gotta make it so it's right, so
Yes.
whatever it is.
It doesn't make sense to have a smooth road and then a pothole, so I'm thinking people's vehicles, so. You know, and I think Ospree's been a good neighbor with you as far as,
Been excellent.
you know, you guys, especially on Durgan Hill there, there's been, knock on wood, no school buses going off. The accidents have been minimum because the two agencies work together, so thank you.
Okay, good. This is what I was referring to, is the email from Bruce Davis. on, what was the paving study that we had done, and how what we're doing is conforming to or comporting with that, and how I know we've moved it a bit.
Yeah, I have. I think I have that some, the chart right here.
Got the chart on the back.
So, I guess for me, I look at this as a price guide for next year. That's all I'm kind of looking at.
This is what he said, which is what we're looking at.
Okay. Yep, all right, sorry. Yeah, so, if you go by what was on our program, as far as chip sealing was gonna be on Ledge Hill, and I looked at Ledge Hill and said it's not a good candidate for that. So we opted to put the money into Dame Road, which was in much worse shape than we expected it to be for this year. Which, we have started on that. I think we're getting ready, we're pretty close to being ready to talk to Boyd Smith, if that's still an option. We started doing some trenching along the sides. We found ledge in several places. We dug out a few rocks. We found a little geyser in the middle of the road. It's good issues. It's not going to be like cut and dry easy.
Well, every road you've done has been a sodden road where you find stumps and culverts and, remember the wires that were
This is
down?
Dame Road you're talking about?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We actually, digging out a rock. Believe it or not, you think the rock should be underneath the pavement when you see a bump. They're down 2 or 3 feet. They're not at the surface. They're actually down.
They'll be up to the surface soon enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're working
It'll
their
be
way
a
around.
lot.
Right.
So we actually dug out one of them, and it was, looked like a lot of fractured ledge. And the water just came right to the surface and started bubbling out.
The water table's really high right now.
Yeah.
But I was pulling rocks out of my driveway. They were filling up
Yeah.
water.
Well, it's gonna go the easiest path of resistance.
On the catch basin study, it said, when we did the accounting and, it's a partial accounting, and at the bottom of the second page, it says Dame Road 114 needs repair. Is that something for this year, or is that down a ways?
No, I think it is. So we've been working on the catch basins already this year.
Mhm.
We've got almost 90% of them all done. And so I have an updated one. I apologize, that one that I gave you was the best that I could find because the updated one is a problem at the moment. Trish lost her computer,
Oh, dear.
everything. Basically got lost and we're slowly getting it back, with a ton of hard work. But at this point, we don't have anything from, last spring until January 1st. And she's, had experts looking at it and all that. It's been tough. So I don't have the accurate up to date one, but we're gonna do a new one. So unless we do get lucky and get the one back. But I did have the paper. I had actually the paperwork that was handwritten. So we do have that we can go by.
Go back and reconstruct the.
Yeah, Trish lost the one that we had printed out in the computer.
You have 71 catch basins, right?
Correct.
And there are some that I call hybrids. Tuftonboro Corner, Federal Corner Road, there's 2 at the church that empty into the lake.
Well, the church catch basins aren't town catch basins.
No.
And we have one below the church.
Well, yeah.
That's why I call them hybrids, because
2 there.
they're technically separate, but
So I do feel that the 2 that are up in the church parking lot that you mentioned actually go down to another catch basin down below that we clean because it ends up it's actually on Lake Street.
yes,
So it is, being cleaned.
mitigated to some degree.
Yep. Yeah, I think that, that's good. It's 2 of them in a row, so that keeps them from going into the lake.
So back to the paving. I think we've strayed far enough away from the paving plan that we were presented by Lakes Region that we need to figure out this year what next year's budget needs to be in order for us to start more, conforming to the plan a little better. So with catch bases and paving, we need to, I think we need to present a budget to the budget committee in the fall, which includes the roads that we need to do in order to start this process of getting it together.
That makes
As
sense.
a plan.
Yep.
So it's, I don't think we can just grab a number out of the air as we've done for the last 1,000 years.
Yep, no, we'll have Frank Carroll come in and visit and review the plan, and
Yeah,
we, everything that's on that plan, we put a price to it.
We need to agree with that.
Yes, and
Approach.
as part of the process, having RPC come in and revisit,
Right.
update the study.
This is what we've done.
Here's what we've done, and here's information, cost information that we know is current today, not state bid prices that happen to be lower because they're buying in bulk, and we're a small town, we're buying in truckloads, right? They're buying
And maybe, I mean, that
massive
might,
a plant.
it'd be a good conversation, I think we had, Lakes Region and as well as Carroll, so that they get a more full understanding of breaking stuff up into quarter-mile segments doesn't work economically.
Right.
So let's look at our program and come up with a little better system, but get more in line with.
And my guess is that the model can be adjusted
Oh, I'm sure. it can.
to deal with larger increments. So in terms of determining where we're gonna work on the road, we measure each quarter mile. But when you work on the road, if you're gonna work with a mile segment, you can determine based on those quarter mile,
Right.
a value for the whole mile that says, okay, this is the segment we do next because here's where the number is. And then, or half a mile or three-quarter, whatever it is, something larger than a little piece here.
But I think, yeah, and I think we need to get away from the discussion being totally centered around dollars, which it has to be because of the amount in the warrant article this year, and be more discussion about what we're gonna do for projects, and then factoring the money into it. If the money's totally out of whack, then we'll get.
Well, that, I think, is what
But I think we
Frank
need
Carroll
to,
discussed with us.
yeah,
It was out of whack, you know, because you gotta put it on 100 ton,
Right.
as opposed, and if you're not putting down 100 ton, it could be as much as $30 a ton more.
right.
And that's why.
But we need to
you have
coordinate that with catching up with this plan in order, I mean, let's say we made it $300,000 next year, 350,000, that we're driving towards some sort of cohesive plan that is economical, works for Carroll, and works for Tufton.
If you remember, you and I had a very constructive suggestion. I think it was your idea, or maybe it was mutual. Some of these projects, we need to think in terms of 3 years. 2 years before we pave, trees or brush or whatever need to be done. Then the culverts and the rocks the year before, and then the paving. And you'll always find something, you know, at the last minute. So I'd be willing to sit down with you again and discuss that.
Yeah, that's, I think, the correct way of doing it is to, you gotta be starting.
It fits right in with what they're saying about planning and budgeting.
Paving projects.
Yeah, start the plan before you get to the budget season.
Right.
Because once we are in the budget season, if we don't have a plan, we don't have some real idea of what we're gonna spend, we're just gonna pick a number out of the air.
I'm just gonna write down some notes so that.
Good idea.
Or we'll send you the minutes.
Yep, that's true, but I like my notes.
Anything else?
There is, yeah, there's a lot. So we did get the posts installed for the radar signs. Those are installed now.
Thank you.
And
Does that come out of your budget?
They took it out of the signs.
Okay, because I know that you'll, I want to make sure you're, not like moving the picnic tables and the stuff that you do for the,
Well, I think Parks and Rec pays you for that.
like that. I don't want it always to fall into your lap.
So, hey, there was a little bit of an argument about that last year, because I guess it had been out of mind, but because my budget had been so depleted from winter, that we put it through Park and Rec's budget, and, you know, like, well, we weren't planning on that either, you know, so.
And when they came out this year, they paid for it, right?
They did, correct.
I mean, we need to just establish a system that works. I mean, Parks and Rec needs your department to do something, and your department needs to be reimbursed.
Some of what this board has done in the past has been, here's the money, we're gonna charge it where the money is. But the way budgets should work is it gets charged to the line item where the cost actually goes.
Where the function is, yes.
And then that helps us budgeting for next year, so we make sure we have enough money in there.
It's an accounting.
So, you know, as we spend money that we haven't identified in a particular budget line, it's great, it's important that we know that there's money that we can apply to it. But
And
sometimes as a shortcut, we just charge it where the money is, and then we don't have to worry about remembering, yeah, we're taking it from here to over here. But then when we budget for next year, we say, oh, we only spent X number of dollars here, we're all set.
And that has happened with me, I know
That's
for
happened
sure.
with you,
Yeah.
and I think that's happening in other areas as
Yes.
well. So
Right, but
hopefully we can be a little more disciplined.
the picnic tables, for an example, get moved twice a year. Every year. So why there would ever be an argument at this junction, I had no idea. Why I argued about who's paying for it. We've been doing it for a million years. So obviously there's a breakdown in the budget process, as Bill was just describing. And we just need to take those little things, make a note of it. If I'm gonna move, if the highway department's gonna move the picnic tables, we're gonna build Parks and Rec. So you need to let Parks and Rec know they need that in their budget.
And that worked this spring, right? Under the new
So,
system.
this last fall was the first time that we've ever moved picnic
Yes.
tables. So that was a new.
It got
We did
done.
before.
They just say,
I don't know who did that.
Oh, they left us out?
Or did they just get left out? I think they just got left out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were deteriorating. Mary said we should.
All right, well, I take everything back.
It's not a tradition yet.
What's that?
It's not a tradition yet. It's beginning.
Well, it's gonna be a tradition pretty soon.
Yes.
I don't mind admitting I'm wrong, but I just want to make sure that as we go forward, that we don't have these crazy little arguments about who's paying for what. Or like putting the swim lines in.
Yep.
No,
That's us.
you guys do that. So Parks and Rec doesn't have to worry about it getting done, but they need to budget for it.
Okay. The street sweeping was completed. Catch basin cleaning was almost completed.
Could I ask you about the street cleaning?
Sure.
How many yards were picked up, any idea?
I don't have. that.
Is it cost effective to recycle that sand, or is it not cost effective in your opinion?
We looked into that once and it wasn't cost effective.
Okay, I was asked that, and I said I would ask.
It's sitting in a pile right now behind the garage.
It just becomes driveway.
We have used it in the past for people ask for it for fill or whatever. And people go like, since you're going by, can you have the fill? The weight limit signs were removed and put away. We ended up having to repair some washouts in the heavy rain at the end of April. And I talked to Tony Eldridge this morning, and we have a hope to get the catch basin repaired on the corner of Durgan and 171 by the end of the week, in the rain.
A citizen asked me, would it be possible to do we have money in the budget to do Durgan Road, so a swale is tapered?
It's something I think we need to look at with the owner,
You know,
and see what they have in mind, and how much lawn they're willing to lose,
right.
because they don't lose lawn. I don't know how comfortable they'll be when they realize that, but.
His thought was that 50 to 100 feet could a swale and erosion proof.
Are you talking that he is the resident at that house?
No, it was a citizen who asked me about
It was somebody else?
it. Yes. I haven't spoken to the landowner.
Yeah, I think that's the first place I'd have to start.
If I can back up to the weight limit signs, I noticed we had some that were pretty bleached out this year, so we probably need to print some new ones, or?
We do, yeah.
Now, do we just print them down here and run them through the laminator, or how's it work?
We get them from Blacksmith Print Shop,
Oh, good.
and we did get some new ones this year, actually. It'd be nice if there was something a little bit thicker and that would last a little bit longer. You know, maybe they need to be metal, I don't know. They
Yeah.
haven't been.
How do we determine on the weights? I noticed that Durgan Road, for example, it's 9 tons?
Or 9 tons.
It empties into 6 tons.
Yeah, so somehow, Wolfboro, Ospey, and Tuftonboro all have different numbers.
And as I drive around the state in mud season, the numbers seem to vary quite a bit from town to town. So is there anything other than tradition that we end up at 9 ton?
So I did ask about the 9 ton years ago to the selectmen, saying, hey, you know, our truck, 1 ton truck, we're basically 4550. You know, that's the GVW. I think it's a common truck these days. Many people do have them. So we went from, I believe, 8 ton to 9 ton. And Walboro's at 10 ton now. Just because the trucks have changed so much. You know, 20 years ago, my 1 ton was a 10,000 pound GVW. Now we're talking about some of them are getting up to 19,000 pound GVW.
Then you put a trailer
Changing.
on it. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just how they're changing things, and at the same time, it's the same kind of basic size truck that they've always been, but the GVW has changed. So, I mean, that's why the roads need to be adjusted with it. That's my feeling. That's why I think Wolfboro is a 10 ton.
Yeah, the capability has changed, not the truck. I mean, not the size. I mean, the truck is able to carry more.
Right.
I mean, your truck doesn't weigh 19,000 pounds. It weighs 19,000 if you fill it right up with stuff.
Yeah, that's the most.
Yeah. Gross. So the net weight, but we're not letting, you know, we're not posting the roads with empty or loaded
Right.
variations, so.
Yeah.
Goes by GVW.
Right.
And the truck, right, it's empty or loaded.
Well, the GVW is gonna be,
Yep.
right. Your tree budget's just about spent out. So in your notes that you're taking, not the notes that you're reading, make some study of how much tree money you need when it comes to the paving. As Lloyd was saying, getting a piece ready for paving is gonna, you know, it's gonna involve some tree work, maybe. We currently have spent it out. I don't know what trees you've taken out.
Well,
Were they storm or was it maintenance?
They were maintenance. So that's how I've been doing it. Maybe this is wrong, I don't know. But so that money that I have for tree removal is for dead trees.
Yeah.
So when we go and cut trees on the side of the road that is for paving, that goes under road construction.
Okay.
Because it normally wouldn't.
But some of the trees you took out this year that were dead trees are along a road that was paved, 3 years ago? And it could have been taken out as part of that process, paved right down Union Wharf.
So I was trying not to cut those trees originally because people don't like it when you cut old big trees like that generally. So we waited till they were dead. And we've been just thinning them out slowly is what we've been doing. They've been dying for years.
I took a class on this, and I have a suggestion for next year's budget. I'd like to sit down and discuss it with you. I think it'll make a lot of sense. So.
Great. You will? So we're starting the road grading tomorrow as far as all the dirt roads. And
You're grading dirt roads?
What's that?
Did you say?
We're starting the road grading of dirt roads. We've kind of smoothed them up already once, but not with the grader at that point because they were too wet.
There's a fellow in town that has a roller. And I asked him, would that be available for dirt roads after they're like Lamb Pond Road? I've seen other towns put it over. He was unabashedly interested and be willing to work with you and whatever.
I used to Vibrilla on my driveway when my dad had one. He's passed away. But it generally worked better if I had put material down. I mean, if we're just rolling the old stuff, yeah, it makes it, the road has to be, doesn't make it smooth. But, yeah, add 6 inches of material and it does a really good job of packing it down, and then you don't get the,
Well, I'm familiar with them.
yeah.
And then technically you really should probably put calcium on as well. That
Partner
also, yeah.
I will say the following, in my job with the school of truancy, I'm over every dirt road in an 8-town area. Lang Pond Road is the best, and it gets a lot of traffic. So that's a compliment to either nature or you or the people who go a little slower. But I'll get together with you.
A lot of it's just the topography of the thing. And it drains well, pretty well.
That needs some drainage work up there as well.
Yeah.
All roads do.
And it's wickedly shaded, so I mean.
That helps. That's probably the best part of why it holds up. Any road that we have that gets full sun is the bumpy area.
Yeah.
It's not full sun.
All right, next.
So that's all I had for.
That's it?
Yep.
You're probably around 60% spent, so we're not as bad as we have been budget-wise. In spite of the fact that we had a pretty severe winter. So I'm good. I think I'd like to ask that we set something up with Carol sooner than later, you know, in July or late June or whatever, to try to get that conversation going. You guys got anything else?
Yes. Is there money in the budget to rebuild the 3 intersection aprons that we've talked about? The town office, Sergeant's Way, and Zadie Farms?
So we do have apron paving money.
Would it be appropriate to put that out to bid, because your crews are so busy?
Yep. I mean,
For
we don't
example-
give them generally anyways. So
For
that's-
example, in Zadie Farms, there's some pipes that need to be added and some precast
head walls.
head.
Yeah, so there won't be money for that. If that's, $7,500 won't get all that done in, but
Right.
paving.
The one at Sergeant's Way, I pull in with my truck and my trailer, and it's not a 90-degree intersection. So it won't crack, and I have some suggestions on how to correct
Oh,
that.
the dump isn't at 90 degrees?
No. And what happens is you go into the other lane.
I got one bad eye, I can't tell.
You're coming from the easy side of pulling.
Oh,
If you came from
okay.
the other direction, it's harder.
Can I sit down with you on these projects and,
Sure.
you know, maybe only one gets done this year or whatever?
It has to come from the east. Can't come from the west.
You have to loop all the way around.
So, also,
No, more. Is there money in the budget to complete the brush cutting projects we've talked about? Or would it be better to put that out to bid and see if we can get a deal?
So what we do have already budgeted is for the roadside mowing, which will hopefully take care of some of that. As far as doing the swampy area by the beach, that's probably not part of it.
Right, I know that you were nice enough to, if it were your company doing it, gave a ballpark figure for each of those. I have it in my notes, but
Yeah, no, we can certainly, if that's something that wants to be done, I'm not sure how we're gonna come up with the money at the moment.
right.
It's,
I had the transfer station, you gave us an estimate on, the beach, and Lake Street, Lake Road.
yep, which in the past, we did, Lake Street was part of the mowing,
Yeah.
it's part of the mowing, because you can reach up, and that's the fastest way to do that. And it's all poison ivy, so nobody wants to do it by hand.
Right. The mowing schedule, do you have a contract with someone, or what are your plans there?
So, yes, we do have the contract with them, and we said between, I think it was like June 15th and August 15th, or something like that.
That's for
They have
all-
a window they can work with.
And that's for all of our roads, because each of the last few years, there's been something that a machine's broken down, or a company went out of business, things that you can't control, like the weather.
That's what needs to be done.
You got the permit for the Japanese knotweed?
So, we started that. We don't have the permit quite yet, but we're hoping that it's in place. So
Where are some of the areas that you're thinking of doing?
So what I did was I said, okay, we're going to just cover all the areas that we had in the past. And we have to do them.
What about the dump?
So we have it in the past, correct?
Okay, the other thing is, eventually, when the driveway is put in for the Great Meadow, there's,
That would be a big project.
no,
That'd be separate.
but there would be no money coming out of your budget for that, correct? As far as, no, I mean, you know.
Yeah, only if you tell me what it is.
Well, here again, it's like moving the park benches. I like it where it needs to be funded, so it's an
Yep.
accounting statement.
But I think that's a ways away. That's not this year.
Okay, and what's gonna be a pain in the ass? Granite poster. I've been asked about it again.
Yeah. So, you know, we're going to have to talk about it, I guess, and come up with a, you know, reasonable solutions, what we talked about last time.
I'm concerned about your plow operator or your equipment. Twice I've seen the plow go around like this, and the traffic that came out over the hill once he was committed, and I just don't want to see a plow accident.
The last time we talked about this, we talked about, let's not just focus on one guy's post, that there are a number of places in town that the posts are an issue, and we need to address all of the posts that are an issue, not just one guy's post because somebody happens to drive by it and see it. I mean, it's, and whatever we come up with needs to be a way that we fairly deal with all of the issues, whether it's a dozen or 2 dozen or 6 or whatever. And I know, Jim, you and I have had a conversation before about you're talking with the property owner where there's a concern about where the ditch line is and where they've got to put their mailbox post so that the mail carrier can get the mail in. So really, that's part of an ongoing process, isn't it?
Yeah. At the same time, we have the same problem with telephone poles. There's a lot of telephone poles around town. They're just as close to the road, and we gotta go out around them. You know, that's always been an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
And an expensive problem. They don't just come and fix it when you call them. It's,
Right.
They charge a lot of money to do that.
That's right. So it's a work in progress. Again, I apologize for being a pain, but I get asked and I respond. 2 other things quickly. The winter operations SOP and the ordinance about plowing across at some point. I will speak to the chairman. I'd like to see that wrapped up before it gets busy in September. Some will say, let's do it, you know, closer to winter when our minds on.
All right, let's
Be
put
like
that,
an August.
let's just put those things on June's agenda, see if we can get it done.
The other thing is, I'm in signing bills on Friday. If my board wanted to go along with it, I would have no problem. That'd be a work session of 20 minutes. And we'll have all
Does
this
anything
signed.
last 20 minutes in this business?
Well, 40 minutes then. You had a couple of letters about Shirley Way.
Yeah, so we had one from one person, which I don't believe that we ever had ditch lines there because the water pitches away.
Yep.
We never had ditch line there, and there's no culvert under her driveway, so I don't know if you did a ditch line where it's just gonna be stuck at their driveway anyways, but.
And we also had the letter in December from a person, a citizen who was concerned about future paving. We've had 2 letters about Shirley Way in the last
Yep.
6 months.
Right.
And I know the way you guys are.
It's a problem, the paving is definitely not in good shape up there.
Federal Corner Road from Burley Road on.
Yep.
We have money left over from SB 38, I believe it is. Yes. I went and got the original copy. For example, one of the things that SB funding can be used as a matching is for projects or phases of projects that do not have local funding already approved. I'd like to get together with you and recommend that we put that, is it a quarter mile or a half mile? Whatever that distance is, and do an engineering study on it and make it a legal road that's eventually paved.
We can, and that would be good, because if you notice that a lot of towns, when they have a problem with drainage on a hill, on a dirt road, they pave the hill. They don't always pave the whole dirt road, but they pave the hill because it stands, withstands the rain,
Yes.
flooding.
I like what you've done over the years in Canaan Valley from the Frank Stockman house back in. You know, you removed rocks, you widened it, you know.
We did that there as well.
So for snow removal, but I'd be willing to work on that project with you if the board would allow me to.
Well, it will keep you from watching television, you definitely.
I guess, you know, we talked about spending that money for an engineering study before. I'm not in favor of spending that special paving money to do an engineering study. But I do think that we need to look at improvements to that road up there, for sure.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of an engineering study you really need.
Yeah.
That was the other question I was going to ask you. You know, but there's a lot of legend.
So 2020 is next year, right?
Yes, it is.
When does the bridge to the neck come up? Wasn't that right around then?
So, I don't believe it's been red listed yet, but it's gonna be, correct.
Right. So we should, I mean, this is just talk, but it's at some juncture, we should discuss what we're gonna do there, so we can start getting a plan together. I mean, I think one thing that I had thought about after looking at some abatement requests and also sales is that maybe we need to elevate that bridge a bit. Bring it up.
Well, and when we talked about it before, we talked about the fact that corrugated cylindrical culvert would be replaced with a box culvert.
So,
With more clearance above high water.
I had two thoughts. First of all, it needs to be a little bit higher. Think of all the waterfront in the basement.
well, I think that's,
In the basement, they can't get their boats up. You know, sort of like the bridge over Main Street in high water, Back Bay, you're stuck. The other thing is that when we put a bridge in, other towns have made sure that there's a dry hydrant so the fire department can access the water without parking on the bridge.
that would probably be a great place to have one, since it's right next to the fire station. Yeah.
And also lower fire insurance for those people. Those are the two things that, no. And if I remember bridges, we spend the money and then after 2 years when it doesn't cave in, we get 80% back.
Right. I just don't know when that, we're on a list.
For some reason, 2025 stands out in my mind.
Was it that
And that's
far
why
out?
we went with Sodom Road, doing the mitigation, the rebuilding, which came out great, didn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Other than there's a foot of tar that needs to be ground out of there.
All right, anything else?
No, I think I'm good, but as far as the bridge goes,
I have some paperwork.
there was no fix that we could do, if I remember, there was no temporary fix like we did on Sodom.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that's the only access point, so
Right.
from what I understood when I talked to one of the engineers, I think it was Holden Engineering, he said that they would probably end up putting a temporary bridge in when all that work happened.
Yeah.
Right. That's my understanding.
Yeah. So I wish there was a simple, fix to get us more time. There isn't. And then when we get the red, it's red listed, I'm not sure how that's gonna affect road construction or any kind of construction that goes on that road.
Yeah, you look at the size of some of the building permits that are going on up there.
I get phone calls a lot about it. It's, it's
You don't get your
going to be a
material
problem.
by pickup truck.
No,
20
someone in this room owns a barge though.
Job security, right? They won't like the bill. So, I think you're right, we need to address that probably sooner than later. I really,
Let's have a plan. I mean, who knows, maybe some
I think we should start setting
infrastructure
money aside.
money will come on.
like as soon as possible, we should start putting fund away every year, because it's gonna happen sooner than later, I think. When it's red listed, we're gonna hear about it all at once.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm done.
That's a long day.
Hey, thank you for what you've done. You've made a difference, and I appreciate it.
Good. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. You too, thanks.
Go back to your boat.
Yeah, leave it at the sort of road. All right, the next item of business is the signature file. We're going to revisit the abatement request on tax lot number 32-2-5 on Mountain Road. It's for a gravel pit that is currently in permitting, but they did lose the tax year of 2018, and we're not able to mine during that year. So I'm going to move that we grant this abatement.
Yes, I'll second it. I spoke to Jack and he explained to me that
I thought it was going
it's
forward.
It's April 1st and that's the D-Day. And when things are permitted, it will change again.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is the 20th, right? The next item for signature is to the Department of Revenue Administration. These are an auditor, and this would be an independent public account option that would be elected, and hiring Robertson Green PLLC. I'll make a motion that we sign this.
I'll second.
Under discussion,
Sure.
the thing that I like about this firm is that we get the report before town meeting. And my background is that every 4 or 5 years of changing locks on your door, you change accountants. But in the balance, I think we ought to keep them, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. My personal opinion is you need to change auditors every 5 years or whatever, just because it's good business practice, but they do provide good service. I don't know how long they've been working for us.
More than 5 years.
Yes.
So,
Maybe next year we should have a longer discussion.
yeah.
Put some RFPs out.
And
I'm trying to be balanced here.
And it's, if we're gonna look at alternatives, the proper approach is to put an RFP out and see what we get in terms of response from however many people want to step forward and seek the business, and then make the decision whether we're gonna.
Right. All right, all those in favor of signature?
Aye.
Someone has one.
Single signature, right?
Okay. The next are appointments. And I guess we can do them individually, or we can do them all in one swoop. Okay, the first is an appointment of Jeff Blackett to the Agricultural Commission.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that for 3 years?
That is a,
3 years?
No, that's for the remainder of the term, so
Two-
June 2021.
It's 2 years.
2 years.
He's going from an alternate to a member.
okay, the next notice of appointment is for Sue Wingate to the Agricultural Commission, and that term runs to June 2022.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next person is John McGrath. Is that how you say that?
No.
How do you say it?
Yeah.
Okay, to the Agricultural Commission, whose term would end June 2022.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the next, we're gonna have a full Agricultural Commission. I love that.
Yeah, they're re-ups, yeah.
The next appointment is for Ron Sunquist to the Agricultural Commission. His term would run until June of 2022.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next appointment is for Kate Nesbitt to be on the Conservation Commission. Her term would end June 2022.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next appointment is for Tom Swift to the Board of Adjustment. His term would run June 2022.
Move approval.
Second. Is that full of time or an alternate?
Regular member.
Member, regular member. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the next and last appointment is for Matt Young to the Planning Board. His term would run until June 2022.
I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
He's done a nice job.
Okay, so these are all signed. There we go. Have to get that.
Heidi opened this up.
Heidi was saying,
Pick me up, pick me up.
Yeah.
Okay, and the correspondence.
Excuse me, was there a geotext record as well? Oh, no, it's not, I apologize, it was not in there, I apologize, I had it in my list, sorry about that.
Okay. There's a Carroll County Public Health Coalition substance disorder and use disorder workshop on Tuesday. Well, wait a minute. When is it? May 22nd, Wednesday, at High School in North Carolina, New Hampshire. Late dinner provided. Oh, it's 5:30 to 8 p.m. For those of you who can see it late to drive. Anybody interested?
I'm not available Wednesday.
I have a conflict.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, on the bidding for the beach project, we spoke with Jim Rhines at White Mountain Survey, and I'd like to make a motion that we leave the bidding open until, we're not going to do the project probably until the fall, so if we could leave the bidding open until June 1st. Oh, no, that's not long enough. July 1st, I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
I'll second and ask it. I agree.
How many seconds do we need?
He's going third.
You got a third?
Do we need to re-advertise in the paper?
I think we
I don't
probably
believe-
should post it again. I don't know if we need to be in the paper.
I guess,
I want to be legal and I want to be fair.
well, we are legal,
Yeah.
because we put an RFP out and we didn't have any responses, so I think from here, we can, if you want to re-advertise it, that's fine, but we've already have several people that are
Right,
actively working on it.
yeah.
So that will give us a choice.
Right.
I'll go with the majority.
One year. Okay, so we'll leave the bidding open until July 1st. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the police department has given us a notice that the 3 abandoned vehicles were taken care of. The town of Albany, I talked to Rick Hilland, is trying to put together a coalition to bring broadband internet to us rural folk. And I'm not certain how effective he's going to be at it, but I'm certainly going to keep an eye on it. So I had planned, if you don't mind, to go to their proposed meeting
Great.
And I had another issue to talk to him about anyway, so I was gonna be there.
Okay.
Yep.
Joe, Joe, have you ever investigated this, or have you ever been involved in it?
No, I offered
Okay, thank you.
to come and make a presentation
Yeah.
to us as well.
Yep.
But I guess you go to their meeting. And we'll
Yeah, let's see how organized they are, because I think there is some federal money available, and there's some other stuff that the state's thinking about doing, and if we could move some of it,
Also ask them about cell phones.
some of that
The
north.
study we did that fell on.
Yeah, I had talked to him about the cell phone issue, he hadn't heard about it, but he was real interested. Got another notification from intern 1 at LRPC, so they're busy being interns, that we're required to have monitoring of our closed landfill. And there's going to be a little presentation and talk at the Meredith Community Center on May 30th about landfills. Fred Bickford's going to be there from Sandwich, and Don Watson from New Hampshire DES, Matt Taylor from DES.
And that was given to Clay, correct?
Hopefully it was going to play. Yeah.
He was given the name of Fred Bickford, too. Remember the guy from Sandwich? Right.
Okay. I don't know. We also got notification from the United States Department of Commerce about the upcoming census, or the current census, I guess 2020. And whether or not we wanted to participate as a town. There's some benefits to it. What I think they're after is for us to do a little more work, so they don't have to do all the work, and maybe verify that we're going to get some kind of federal benefit from it by verifying our population. I'm not certain it's
That's for update to new construction
right.
list, so.
Right. I mean, how much federal money have we gotten in the past? Other than when they come up with these block grants?
It was FEMA, but it took longer.
Yeah, but that, in terms of the money that's based on population,
Right.
how much comes directly to the town, I don't know, but
Yeah.
it rolls up and it affects what the state does as well.
Who will do it?
This is I think they're inviting a review of their new construction.
Okay, we have to have some sort of answer back to them if we want to participate by
Right.
June 14th.
Yeah.
So let's all read this and we'll talk about it again later. Okay, this is just an email from our auctioneer about our upcoming sale.
We're talking about an open house date,
Right,
yeah,
and
May 31st, something like that.
the 31st will be an open house from 2 to 4. Friday, May 31st, for those of you who are out there on the interweb watching us.
That was the information you requested about police
Right,
activity.
so I'll have Karen forward that to the chief, that was his.
I gave her a copy.
Oh, you did, okay. So this is a statistical report done on the police department as far as offenses, felonies, traffic stops, juvenile arrests, et cetera, from 2009 through 2017. And during the chief's review, these statistics had come up, so we were providing him with a copy, and there's a copy here.
Excuse me, for the open house,
Yeah,
we just want to make sure that date was okay with everybody, and if you'll all be attending the open house. Or not.
I think that's a good date for it. since
we're
it's
not-
been cleaned out.
We're not eligible to bid, so we'll let them take care of it.
I'll mow the lawn.
Yeah, Lloyd's gonna mow the lawn. So that's correspondence, other business. Do we have, I mean, we haven't met for a while, so want to do a selectmen's report? I got a couple of things, that's the reason I brought it up.
Yeah, go.
Okay. Met with Parks and Rec. It seems as though our new director's working along and getting things done. He's got his lifeguard staff completely set.
Great.
He's coordinating with road agent on setting lines and also getting the swim ducks out. His, I didn't go to the Old Home Days meeting, but there was an Old Home Days meeting.
Yeah.
Of which he was part.
Yeah.
Both you and I went to the presentation on school taxes that was put on in Wolfboro, the state school tax. I didn't find it terribly enlightening as far as the direction was concerned, but it was certainly enlightening as far as how much it costs and how many kids are in school and who has the schools. It seems as though we're going to have to be involved in the coalition out of Portsmouth to defend our position of not being a donor town unless the tax structure changes, at which point we'll have a discussion.
I had a question for you.
Sure.
When I first became selectman, the boards prior to on the first 2 years, we actually made a monetary donation that we budgeted. And the lady in Portsmouth retired. Do you think that we ought to
Well, it was.
make an investment? Just something for you to think of.
I don't think that they've asked for that quite yet. And I remember it was $25,000 when I was a selectman before.
And I think that basically involved hiring a representative to interface with
Lobbyists.
Yeah,
with the legislature.
And you had a law firm involved as well,
Right.
so there were more expenses than there are now. And it seems as though, with the exception of bills sponsored by our local representative, Mr. Cordelli, which would take $2 million out of our hands and put it in the state coffers, all of those efforts have failed so far in Concord, but they're not always going to fail because the systems are starting to break down.
Yes.
Yeah, that was about it. Anything?
I don't have anything this week.
Lloyd?
What is,
Yes. We currently have 4 floors that are red tiled in some of our buildings and need cleaning. The entrance to the Piper House has radiant heat underneath, and the office and bathroom floor at the transfer station is the same tile and the same radiant heat is installed. The other 2 tile floors are in each building of the transfer station where the operator to the compactors are. These floors have never been cleaned or maintained. Clay and I met with the owner-operator of Building and Ground Supply from Alton. We toured the locations. His recommendations are that he and his crew thoroughly clean each floor. Subsequent cleaning would consist of normal washing and mopping after that. I've suggested that he do this on a Thursday when the buildings are not being used. The cost would be $200 per floor for a total of $800. I have located an individual that will donate 4 floor mats that go under the office chairs. If we do not do this soon, the wheels of the office chairs will permanently damage 3 of the floors. Note this company comes highly recommended. They do the fire station. That's $800. I don't know where the money would come from, but I would ask that we consider it.
well, it's transportation, maintenance, right?
The 3 up there, that'd be $600, $200 is at the town. And can I leave this and you get the copy back to me?
Sure.
I don't expect a decision to be made today, so.
Well, there isn't going to be one. No.
Right. So, and I guess I would encourage Clay to do the maintenance as he
Yeah.
sees fit.
Yeah, this is the first, it's come up, it should have come up during the budget season.
Right.
That's right.
What prompted me is when the station, the building got banged into and they moved the stuff out, and I began thinking and whatnot. And I realized that this might not be able to be done this year, it needs to be budgeted, so.
Right.
The nice thing of talking to this guy is, he says, there are companies that will come in and have you put coats of this down and coats of that, but then it's just them coming back once or twice a year and redoing it. He recommended that this be done once, and then with the mats.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda, we'll talk
Yep.
about it.
Yes.
Anything else? Do we have public comment?
Public comment. Just point of interest, Jack Parsons is retiring on June 6th. I'm putting this out there just for the camera and anybody who may or may want to apply for the planning board. Bill wasn't there.
From the planning
He's
board.
not retiring. He's finishing his term on the planning board.
That-
He's still the code officer.
Oh, no, that's what I meant, I'm sorry. That's what I meant. I'm just bringing it to your
This is how
attention.
nasty rumors
Right, but he's
start.
not retiring.
Well, he'd like to, but that's besides the
He's
point.
finishing his term on the planning board.
Right, and I'm just bringing it forward again.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, we're always looking for volunteers, we definitely need some for Parks and Rec. And planning board can always use alternates if not full members. So whoever's out there in TV land, let us know. All right, I'm gonna adjourn this public meeting
No, actually, we have,
and go into non-public.
yeah.
Right.
So I move that we go into non-public session per RSA 91A3, Roman 2, parent L.
Legal.
Second.
All those in favor?
Would yes.
Marcus, yes.
I'll be yes.
Thank you.